So I'm sure we'll have a few people starting to, continuing to join us over the next couple of minutes, but why don't we get started because we do have a tight hour. So again, I'm Christine Dawson. I'm the president of CEWIL Canada, at least until next week. And I'm happy to be your CEWIL host for today's webinar. I'm going to do just a little bit of housekeeping before I introduce our speaker. So one thing I would like to make everyone on the line aware of is that we are going to record this, this session, and I believe Haley has already pressed record. So we are going to record this session and make it available so that individuals can review this session again at their leisure, people who missed it, and it will be available on the public-facing side of our website. So thanks for joining us, both members and we also have some non-members who signed up to participate, which is wonderful. Sarah, I will just introduce Sarah in a moment. One of the things that we're going to do is have a presentation for about 15, 20, 25 minutes, and then we will be opening it up to questions. What I'm going to do is moderate all of the questions. So what I'm going to ask you to do at any point throughout the presentation to please type your question into the Zoom webinar chat. You can feel free to send it to all panelists and attendees, or you can send it just to the panelists, and that's fine as well. And I will be kind of collating those questions, moderating, and providing those to Sarah. At the end of the session, if we don't get through all of the questions, I will be providing all of the questions that we received to Sarah so that she is aware, and we have they have an opportunity to review those questions and kind of we can help disseminate any answers that may be required. So with that noted, you are all muted at this time. There may be an opportunity at the very end for us to unmute, but given our tight timeline, that probably won't happen. So we would ask you to stay muted just to maintain the quality of the audio on the call. And like I said, we'll try to get through as many questions as we possibly can. And so now I will introduce our speaker of the day. So Ms. Sarah Plouffe is Director of the Student Work Placement Program in the Youth and Skills Innovation Directorate of the Skills and Employment Branch for Employment and Social Development Canada. Many of you may have, it's a very long title, Sarah. Many of you may have heard,
good job.
Thank you. Many of you may have heard Sarah speak before, present to CEWIL in various capacities at prior events and conferences. And we're so pleased that she has taken the time to provide both an update in terms of kind of results and accomplishments of the program over the last little while, and as well as looking forward to some changes that will be occurring. So thank you very much, Sarah, for joining us today. And from that, I will pass it over to you. And again, at any point, please feel free to start typing your questions in, and we'll collate them as we go. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, Christine. As you mentioned, I have been working on setting up the student work placement program for a few years now, and things are kind of fully implemented. And I know that a lot of you may know about the program. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this session brings a little bit of new information for you, but I have been kind of running this slideshow a little bit on a consistent basis over time. But please do send in your questions if you have any, and we'll be happy to answer them. So I'm going to jump right in. And and maybe a kind of a little message to start with. I'm sharing my screen. The deck is in, or the PowerPoint presentation is in English right now on the screen. We did share with CEWIL the French equivalent of this PowerPoint presentation, so you may want to communicate with them directly to have access to this. It should be available now, and you can follow through with the French or English version, but I will be sharing the English version on the screen today, and I will be speaking mostly English. If there are a significant number of French participants on the webinar, I can switch to French in some sections, or I can take French questions, or we can redo this webinar. I'm advancing myself, sorry, Christine, but if there was need to, I could do this in French at any other convenient time for me. So I guess we'll start with a little bit of the history. Like I said, we've been working towards this for a few years. We actually were announced in budget 2015 for the first time, then confirmed in budget 2016. And we started off kind of small as a time definite project, and with $73 million to run over 4 years to do 10,000 work integrated learning placements. Work integrated learning opportunities, and I'm going to go into a little bit more detail around what that means for us, but this is just kind of a breakdown of how we came to be. And so that was followed in 2018 with additional funding announcements for sub-pockets of activity within still the STEM and business spectrum, but focused on both the cybersecurity and the artificial intelligence subsectors of the economy and of education focus. In March 2019 was our big budget announcement, probably because of the early success of the program. It was recognized and valued by, I think, schools and employers alike. And so budget 2019 increased the funding for the overall initiative to include an additional $631 million over 5 years to support up to 20,000 new work placements for students in post-secondary education by year 2021-22. So we need a little bit of time to ramp up the activities and get up to that number, but we are pretty happy with the progression so far. We are very excited, although this was all kind of happening during an election year. It does, put a bit more pressure in terms of delivery within this first year of the expansion. But we are very happy to report that expansion is now underway, and I can go, as I said, into a little bit more detail on later on in the presentation. So switching to the next slide, the SWIP program, for you out there who know it already, is essentially was designed because we kept hearing both from employers and students coming to our department and advocating on behalf of their membership to say that both students in post-secondary education are investing significant resources and time and effort in continuing their education, but upon graduation they found that it was not as easy as they thought it would be to find employment, quality employment in their field, because employers were looking for them to have a significant experience in their field already on their resumes. And equivalently, employers were coming to us saying that they wanted to be part of the skill kind of talent pipeline and include new grads in there and hire them upon graduation, but they were finding that some of them were missing out on some very key kind of work-ready skills or experiences that would make their onboarding a little bit easier. And so the SWIP program was designed to allow students in post-secondary education programs to gain work-ready skills and to integrate during their studies and contact or be put in contact with multiple employers in their field, so that upon graduation they would have an easier transition into the labor market. And we think it makes for an easier and more efficient labor market transition that way. So essentially, the way we work is that ESDC signs contribution agreements with employer consortia. And this is a lingo that we've designed to define organizations that sign these agreements that represent mostly employers in a given sector or maybe sometimes a specific region of the country. These employer consortia are responsible for delivering on two main activities, one of which is, of course, creating more work placements for PSE students and making sure that employers are offering these opportunities to students. They're also kind of on the hook to check for quality of these opportunities. We don't want any employers to be offering opportunities that won't be valid for a student's career progression or skills building experience. And so in order to incentivize the employers to do this, the federal government is, through this program, offering wage subsidies to employers who are providing net new work-integrated learning opportunities for PSE students. It started off as a STEM and business-focused program, but with the expansion money that we received in March 2019, now all students from all fields of study and employers in all segments of the market will be eligible for this program, as long as they respect the sort of net new. So these placements cannot be funded to replace other placements that would otherwise happen without our funding. We really do want to see an increase in the number of total opportunities that are available to students, which is why we want to fund employers to do a little bit more than what they were doing at the same time last year, for instance. So if they always kind of on a consistent basis were taking one student, we'll pay for the second one and the third and the third and the fourth. But we want them to be increasing their overall capacity to participate and offer these opportunities. And so in order to do that, as I was saying, we are offering wage subsidies. It is 50% of all wages paid to the student, up to a maximum of $5,000 if the employers are hiring our categories of underrepresented students. That can be women in STEM, newcomers, Indigenous students, persons or students with disabilities, as well as first-year students. They could be eligible to receive up to 70% of the wages paid to up to a maximum of $7,000 per placement. So that is the activity stream one for our delivery partners. The second stream of activity is really to bring together the world of education and the world of business or employers. We kept hearing, especially in some fields that are evolving quite quickly, and you folks in the education world will feel this more than we do, but some employers were saying that some of the skills that are being taught in some curriculum didn't quite respond to the quick evolution of the skills requirements in the market today. And so we want to facilitate some of the conversations happening between employers and schools, understanding that it's not always easy to get these folks to be sitting at the same table, but at least we wanted that to be part of our initiative because we want to create a more of an overall kind of systemic effect so that students receive all of the skills training that they absolutely need during their studies, and they get the work experience that they need to be kind of a full spectrum and complete skill profile and ready for the labor market once they graduate. Any questions so far, Christine?
Sarah, I think most of the questions are coming in right now. I'm going to hold them till the end.
Perfect. So then a little bit more again on the delivery approach. As I mentioned, the employer consortia is responsible, has been selected to deliver the program for the department, and they are in contact and direct exchange with the employers, the students or the school, or the students and the schools. And so they have different objectives in brokering all of these relationships. Mainly for employers, they're trying to target SMEs. We've heard so much about all of the work that needs to be put into sharing program information, available program information with employers, especially small and medium-sized ones that may not have capacity or time to research the available programs out there for them. And so the employer consortia plays that role for us, and they are out there sharing some of the available information about the program to SMEs that may not know about it, or even helping them fill out some of the forms or put together their documentation in order to select a student or offer a WIL opportunity, because some of them have never done this or don't quite know exactly how to do that. They're also checking for quality placements, and they are working with a lot of the large employers within a given sector that we are looking to kind of influence the overall way that employers interact with schools and students on an ongoing basis across the country. We seem in Canada to be compared maybe to some countries. We're doing better than some and maybe not as good as others. But we want to stimulate the interaction and the responsibility level between employers and their talent pipeline, and so we want to get them involved as much as possible in training the next generation of workers. And so for students, the responsibility of the employer consortia delivering the SWIP program is really to help the students connect with these available WIL opportunities, which should be very directly linked to their career path or their field of study. And we also look to them to provide feedback or kind of to promote some reflection on the type of WIL opportunity that was provided to the student, and to maintain kind of a follow-up on that with the employers. I think they have been reaching out to PSC institutions as well to promote this program and promote the wage subsidies available to employers and the opportunities that are available to students. And so hopefully they're also collaborating with all of you to foster the conversations that could happen about curriculum adjustments or just normal evolution of the skills requirements in the labor market. That's it for slide 4. On to slide 5. We've had a few questions around the SWIP program eligibility criteria for most categories. So I'm going to go into a little bit of a description here. In terms of employers that are eligible to receive a wage subsidy through this program, as I mentioned before, they need the placements or the WIL opportunities need to be net new, so an increase from what employers were doing already. However, employers of all sizes are now currently available or eligible for this program. They can be for-profit. They can also be non-for-profit. I think maybe there was some confusion in the beginning about non-for-profit not being eligible for this program, but they definitely are. We do exclude, however, most federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal levels of government, as we could see adding a wage subsidy onto an already publicly funded salary wage dollar didn't make as much sense to us, and we really wanted to incentivize, knowing that the Canadian economy is composed of 90% plus SMEs, privately owned businesses. We really wanted to incentivize that portion of the economy in connecting earlier on with students on their career paths. So individual students who are eligible, I think these are fairly straightforward for most similar programs. So a student needs to be registered in a recognized, in a program or certificate or degree in a recognized PSC institution. in any field of study now. So reiterating that although we did start the program a few years ago, focused exclusively on STEM and business programs, we are expanding now as of September to all fields of study. And the students also need to be either Canadian citizens, permanent, or persons with refugee status. They need to be legally able to work in Canada according to the laws of their jurisdiction. In terms of the PSC institutions, all publicly recognized PSC institutions are eligible to flow either their employers or their students to access the program. We are currently working with polytechnics, universities, colleges, and CEWILs across the country. I had my team draw up a few numbers, but based on the data that we have currently, we are looking at, if I group together maybe more the college level institutions, so college, polytechnics, and CEWILs represent 48% of the overall participation in terms of the number of PSC institutions that we deal with. And then 52% would represent the universities that are accessing the program currently. So it's almost a 50-50 split between the college level institution and the university level institutions that are accessing the program right now. So a little bit of the results here so far. So it's very precise, 2 years and 3 months. We go on a quarterly results reporting schedule. So now we have 2 years and 3 months of numbers in. So happy to report that the number of placements is following the outlined targets that we had for the program. So we're at 5,635 right now. And we have placements in all provinces and territories. We're actually kind of comparing the number of placements that are happening per jurisdiction and comparing that to the number of STEM and business post-secondary students that are enrolled or that were enrolled. Actually, we only have the 2016-17 numbers, and comparing those proportions, we can see that most provinces and territories are kind of accessing proportion equal to their proportion of students related to overall Canadian students in STEM. And some of them are accessing even more. We have maybe 3 provinces that may not be accessing their full share yet, but we will be working very, very hard on making those numbers increase over the next few months. So for now, we are at 47% of students that are accessing the program that had reported an underrepresented status. And I mentioned those categories, but I would say that most of the underrep students that are participating in the program are women in STEM students. Still have some work to do in getting more Indigenous students in participating and more disabled students, and more newcomers. So definitely happy to work with all of you to help those students along in their participation and access of the program. 167 post-secondary institutions are linked to the program overall. 50-50 split, as I said, between the college and the university levels. And we're at over 2,000 employers now that are connecting to the program and offering the WIL opportunities that are incremental, that are net new compared to what they were doing before. We're very happy also with the participation of small and medium-sized enterprises. So out of all the employers that are receiving a wage subsidy right now from this program, 88% of them are small and medium-sized enterprises. And I don't have the number in front of me, but I think if we look at just the small enterprises, so the overall percentage of businesses that are in the small business category that are accessing the program, we're in the 70-something%. I want to say 72, but I might be wrong. Somewhere around there. So it's still a significant portion of the recipients from this program that are really, I think, benefiting from a wage subsidy, which capacity to hire new students or new employees generally for very small businesses is always tricky. So I think we are targeting the right clientele there for sure. We, as you know, I think are kind of active right now in 8 growth sectors and looking to increase that participation over the next few months. So this is the slide that kind of confirms that the expansion that was announced in March 2019 in the budget was implemented this fall. So as of fall 2019, we had signed agreements with the partners that you can see up there on the screen to have them offer wage subsidies for the SWIP program to students and employers from all fields of study and all disciplines within their given sector, understandably. But this means that for now, at least, the current partners, active delivery partners that we have on board will be looking to even if they are in a STEM sector, maybe. So like I'll take the example of the IT sector. We've heard from them and their employers that they are looking to onboard students, for instance, in artificial intelligence development. They need psychology students to guide some of the programming content that may require a programmer and very IT focused or STEM focused skills and experience, but they also need a lot of other types of speciality or students from other disciplines to inform the overall development of the sector activities. So this is happening across the board in all of these sectors, and with all of these partners, their employer base were really strongly advocating on behalf of art students and social science students that needed this connection opportunity with employers, needed the work experience, and are now being tied or at least provided with a WIL opportunity to work in a very high growth sector, and grow a sector that is going to demand a lot of new talent and will be hiring over the course of the next years. So good career prospects, still working within their level of speciality and discipline, but within the context of a different sector. The program for now has this list of individual partners which are easy to connect with through, and I should have added that maybe on the, I didn't think of it, but if you Google Student Work Placement Program, you will easily find the web page, the ESDC, Federal Government Employment and Social Development Canada webpage with the Student Work Placement Program title, under which if you click either for students or for employers, you will have access to this list of current active delivery partners, as well as a direct link to their webpage to have their contact information, or even send them an email and connect or register for this program directly. We are looking to expand the reach of this program over the coming months and years, but I'd say like kind of short or medium term. And we will hopefully be able to continue the expansion early in 2020. So another portion, I guess, of the overall kind of work that we are doing around work integrated learning came from the fact that we understood that federal dollars could not fund every single placement out there, and we wanted to have systemic impact, and we wanted to kind of broaden the access for students and employers, and really change the way in which students and employers were connecting and facilitate that interaction as much as possible. And which is why we have invested also in an online matching system that is aimed to connect with the different ports of entry already being used either by the students on their side or by the employers on their side. So we know that it's maybe not very effective to be spending a lot of resources, time and money to direct everyone to one single door. So we are trying to, and we have kind of invested in funding IT structure connectivities between some of the employer hubs and the student or education hubs, so that these systems can better relate to one another and connect in an overall kind of WIL ecosystem, if you can, if I can use that terminology. So essentially, the Outcome Campus Connect system is a way that we see can be used to facilitate the connection between students and employers on an ongoing basis, and hopefully help some of the students and employers that were maybe not in very big cities, not close to very big and populous universities, which had more facility connecting to our national delivery partners. But now we'll have the Campus Connect system to help rural, remote, northern, smaller schools and their students and their employers in the small communities connect to WIL opportunities locally or otherwise. This system is aimed to be free of access for students, post-secondary students, all Canadian employers, as well as PSC institutions, recognizing that some are already using Orbis systems, some are not, some are using other systems, but we want to be at least able to provide a free API connection to the overall platform in a way that allows every school that wants to be connected to the system to have their way to do that. I think I'm going to stop there, Christine, and allow time for some questions.
That's great, because there's been lots of questions that have come through. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe start, if you're okay, with a little bit of like a quick, maybe I'll do this so you can see me too. I'll do a little bit of a quick round of questions that I think you can kind of get through, and then we might dig into some that might take a little bit longer. So one question that came in is SWIP eligible for grad students?
That's a tricky question. Technically, this program is for students that are registered and still active in their program, and are not students that have completed and graduated and they're just looking for long-term or full-time employment.
Clarification, not graduated students, but like master's or PhD students.
That's my French, because in French we don't have a word to say grad versus undergrad, we say students. And so absolutely, yes, I don't have the breakdown of those numbers. It is eligible for all levels of students that are in post-secondary education institutions, absolutely.
Okay. Is SWIP eligible for full-time positions only? Are full-time only positions eligible?
So to understand the question correctly, I want to make sure. So a a student could be taking on a WIL opportunity that is a part-time opportunity, so 1 day per week on an ongoing basis for 10 weeks, let's say.
Sure, or 20 hours a week or whatever. That, yeah.
Yes, whatever the format. SWIP is very much focused on being a formula that is nimble and that is flexible to answer the needs of either the specific program area within the school and the students' needs, as well as the employer needs. So whatever schedule works for the student and the school is fine by us. We do not have a strict limitation on the duration or intensity of the WIL opportunity. We leave that up to the employer and the school to figure out.
Great. The question, is MIR still a partner organization distributing grants?
They absolutely are, and are right now delivering STEM and business placements. They are on our website currently.
Can you clarify how you, or classify how you just would define a newcomer? And can you, I know you said this already, but could you just clarify the eligibility of international students enrolled in post-secondary programs?
Yes, so newcomer definition is, I have it detailed somewhere, but I think is new to the country within 5 years. We're using the StatScan definition. We're not reinventing the wheel, but I think their definition is within the first 5 years of their arrival or of their obtaining citizenship or status within the country to be able to work. International students are, for the most part, given our criteria, I think, of eligibility, not eligible to participate in the program if they do not have the other criteria that fit the eligibilities.
Okay. And there were quite a few questions about international students and international eligibility, and I know this is something that CEWIL and ESTC have spoken about. Can you, there's quite a few questions that have been coming through around details around provincial data by by each individual post-secondary institution. I guess, is there more granular data that may at some point be available around those areas, or and maybe you could talk about that.
That's a good question. So we only have like a certain level of data because we didn't want to have access to too much of the data, to be frank. We want to keep that data kind of safe and secure within the schools and the delivery partners possession in their hands. So we do have high level information. I can maybe share like a case by case. I can't share to everyone the overall participation of each school, for instance. So I have a list, which I don't even have in front of me now, but I guess maybe if select schools were interested in knowing what their actual participation or access to the program might be, they could send us a request and we can send them the overall kind of high level, aggregate level data that we have for them, but not sharing to everyone else's data.
Right, okay, very understandable. Can you talk, so one of the questions that came in was around some maybe perceived challenges or challenges around the timing of hiring and approval of funding. So maybe you could clarify a little bit whether, because one of the questions was around whether the SWIP program has a requirement that employers must hire before funding is provided, or if this is simply a delivery partner kind of process that's been put into place. So that question makes sense.
Yeah, and I think it's it may get tricky for all of you that are dealing with multiple delivery partners. Which is why the question is coming up, I assume. We were not prescriptive in terms of how that should happen exactly, because we wanted to leave in some flexibility. However, we're happy to listen in on any kind of impediments this is creating, or if schools are finding that the way in which delivery partners have chosen to set up the kind of process to hire students and become eligible for wage subsidies for the program. We're happy to kind of receive the comments from the schools and maybe try to issue some guidelines to our delivery partners, because at the onset, to be frank, we wanted to leave some flexibility, and we didn't want to be prescriptive about something that we felt we didn't know exactly how it should be for everyone. So yeah, happy to hear what the issues might be, or what the suggested best practice might be for everyone involved.
Okay, so just to summarize that, it's not a SWIP program requirement. It's a partner-specific process decision, but you're open to feedback about what's working best for Canadian students?
Sure, and to be fair, like, we've put the onus on the delivery partner to ensure that the student is well vetted. This is a real student in a real program. The employer is well vetted. They have a real quality opportunity to be provided to a student, and that the match in terms of the competency of the student and the skills requirement of the employer are a good match, and that there's a sort of a plan in place to receive this student. So it's also kind of maybe because the delivery partner has a lot of responsibility in terms of making sure that this quality placement is a good experience for everyone. Maybe that's because why they've set up the system in that way. But yeah, happy to hear what the issues might be.
Okay. Had a few people writing questions around the idea, your comment that placements need to be part of the formal curriculum. So I wonder if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, understanding that this might be an impediment for students to access the program and for schools to increase their participation. However, we were wanting to remain within the work integrated learning sort of guidelines, and following some of the expert advice that we got from CEWIL and others in terms of their definitions and the way that they value the WIL experiences for students. And so we are, again, happy to work with schools. We've heard of some very interesting examples, recognizing that it is difficult to implement or change, create new WIL programs or co-op programs, or embed different curricula aspects within existing programs, making changes. We understand that is very resource intensive and timely, or takes a lot of time. And we've found that for some programs that are less WIL embedded, there are workarounds. Some schools are creating add-on certificates that a student can take after they've graduated from their specific program to enter a work integrated learning opportunity. Some other schools are turning I don't have the right terminology, but elective courses, is that the right terminology?
Elective.
Like when you, yes, courses into work integrated learning opportunities. So it's still for credit and it's still kind of cadre structured, but the student gets to kind of have that option within their program. So happy to work, and I fully recognize that that is a hurdle a little bit for everyone, but we did it because we still wanted it to fit within the structure of what work integrated learning should be.
Another question is around the expansion of the program, and with the new kind of scope of students able to be served, will additional delivery partners be brought on board? The questions that, along the lines of social services.
So specifically for social services sector?
Or just to serve the expanded
So,
student eligibility for the program?
okay, so yes, we are looking to onboard additional delivery partners. I can't tell you exactly when and where and who those will be. Time will tell. We will have soon a minister in function, returning or new, that can change things. But essentially, we have a plan in place and we want to move forward. We want to provide expanded access to schools and other programs, especially kind of focused on covering the arts and humanities and social sciences programs and providing them with more direct access into the program. So if any of you or all of you have ideas on fantastic partners that should be onboarded or considered for that, we're happy to receive that information.
Okay. And I've noted in the chat that there have been, some comments or questions around, processes and, opportunities to simplify. So, what I will remind everyone is that I will provide Sarah with a transcript of all of the questions that were asked so that she has a record of those. So in this way, we're able to kind of share some of our feedback and information with Sarah. So, if you have more comments like that, feel free to type them into the chat because it will be an easy way to forward these this information and request to Sarah through this venue. A question around the concept of net new or the process around kind of helping to ensure that the opportunities are now new opportunities available to students. So can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a complex thing to understand, but we have tasked our delivery partners with the responsibility of showing on paper that for each placement in which the federal government invests, we are getting assurances from the employer that this placement could essentially not happen without this additional pocket of funding. And so we are asking employers to provide information about the previous year and their offer in terms of WIL opportunities and student placements within that previous year, and to see that they are actually kind of increasing their offers. And we can fund some of the increases in offers, but that onus again falls onto the shoulders of our delivery partners and employers.
So I have another question that's kind of related to those delivery partners, just to clarify that these industry partners, do they just represent their members if they happen to be a membership-based organization, or would they represent anyone that would fall within that industry segment?
Yeah, that's a good question. We definitely want them to have the broadest impact as possible. So hopefully their mandate is actually with us to share this information as openly and widely as possible within their sector. So members and non-members, yes.
Great. Can employers access SWIP funding in addition to, say in Ontario, the Cooperative Education Tax Credit?
So the way we see it is that we don't want to kind of tell provinces what they can do and can't do. So, and we don't want to penalize any of the employers either that are already participating or have access to these additional sources of funding. However, we don't want to kind of double stack. So our answer to that is that for the portion of wages paid, so if we say the federal government is providing 50% of wages, the employer in Ontario, for instance, is still paying 50% of wages and could, at the end of the year, submit that portion for a tax rebate on the wages paid.
Okay. And we're very nearly wrapping up the end of our time because I know that Sarah has a 1 o'clock meeting that she has to actually make her way to. So I think we maybe have time for one last question. So then again, I would encourage anyone else to please feel free to submit your questions in this way. The last question is kind of related to how can institutions access promotional material so that they can help educate students and employers regarding these opportunities?
Oh, that's a good question, and I'm afraid that's maybe the question that I don't have a clear answer for. We are currently revamping or updating our website. However, because it's during our expansion news kind of happened during election writ period and caretaker period for us as federal workers, it means that we cannot change information on the website unless it's like a comma or a mistake in a word or something, but we can't do that right now. So I would say that it is I guess some promotional material has been prepared by each of the individual delivery partners. The federal government will probably have their own material after election and when we have a minister in function, so we can share that once it's available. We have a very short blurb that we can share with Christine that we've prepared in English and French, kind of shooting people to our webpage where the direct links to the delivery partners are available. I have to say it's not very sexy or flashy or marketable, but it's what we have to work with for now. I would also say that maybe Campus Connect is a source of information, and they have promotional material as well. So I guess those are the different sources. I know it's not a perfect answer, but we'll keep working on that.
Well, if I could maybe add a comment in, and then as we wrap up this session, and as CEWIL hopes to be a good partner with ESDC in supporting, promoting this program, one of the this first webinar today is was an opportunity for us to help ESDC share this information with CEWIL members and other interested parties. As I said, it's been recorded. It'll be available for folks to watch again. As well, we will be inviting SWIP delivery partners to also offer webinars. So please watch out for that, because you're going to be seeing those coming out in the coming weeks. And we are also going to be launching a SWIP newsletter through CEWIL, where we will try to help disseminate information from the various delivery partners. So I think look for CEWIL to help support those communication channels that ESDC has as well. So again, thank you very much, Sarah. Thanks for taking the time. Hope you, I've left you 3 minutes to get to your next meeting. Thanks everyone for joining us. Again, we'll leave the chat box open for a minute. So Sarah, please, if you need to run, please feel free to do so. Folks, we'll leave the chat box open for a couple of more minutes so that you can feel free to add any additional questions that you may have had. And we will ensure to copy a transcript and provide that to Sarah. Okay, thank you everyone very much for your participation. Have a great day.
Thank you.